Just when you thought after last night's post-game show that things couldn't get much worse, well, they did. During the day, when the report came out from Shams stating that during the team meeting, which we all knew about, that then Tyrese Maxey calls out Joel Embiid. Embiid says this other thing, even though he was receptive to the message. And so many things got leaked in that story, and we have to discuss it all here this afternoon on this Tuesday for the 2-11. Stress it once again, the 2-11 Philadelphia 76ers. Along with Derek Bodner, Kyle Newbeck, I'm Devon Gibbons. Brianna is here. All of you in the chat, we thank you for joining us early because we got to get this one rolling, Kyle. This is, as we talked about, a bad start. But even last night when we were discussing, and I give you guys credit for, I mean, look, we were all talking about how it was necessary, but for the things that we all laid out last night in that post-game show about what was going on, it's all coming together now based on what is being shared from that team meeting. I shared with you guys how I quickly saw when you guys had stepped away Embiid and Lowry sitting on the bench when everybody was walking off the floor, and it was a little animated. And it comes to, in the story at least, Kyle Lowry saying that, hey, we need to have this meeting right now. Nick Nurse spoke up. The players spoke up. Tyrese Maxey, of course, highlighted in this entire thing. But this has gotten even way further than what we have thought in terms of how bad things are right now for this basketball team. This is a mess, man. It really is a mess.
Yeah. It's bad enough to be at a point 13 games into the season that a veteran has to stand up and say, we need to have a serious meeting about what is going on. It's bad enough that one of the leaders of your team has to go to the guy who's won an MVP and say, your work habits are BS, right? Once it also becomes, it's bad enough that people in that room are talking to other people and those people are talking to reporters and it is leaking to the press in a manner that I don't think anybody in that room was necessarily prepared for, to the extent that the front office was not a part of that meeting, that This was supposed to be a contained meeting, and they said as much to the press. They indicated as much in some private conversations all of us has had. It is exactly what we talked about last night. We are starting the period of the season where the finger is being pointed, where people are looking for people to blame. And so let's start with the guy who is under the most fire right now, right? Joel Embiid. In that story, the big headline that has been taken away from it was this bit from Shams, who said, quote, Maxey challenged Embiid to be on time to team activities, calling out the 2022-23 league MVP about being late, quote, for everything and how it impacts the locker room, from other players to the coaching staff. Sources briefed on the meeting told ESPN. And so we've talked in recent years, long before this show even existed, frankly, right, about Joel's maturation as a player and as a leader. He has talked publicly about the reasons for trying to be better, you know, for his own goals, for his family goals, all the reasons that he wants to be a better player, a better leader, a better man, quite frankly.
Yes.
And I think we saw that reflected in how we saw him play during these years where he's been either MVP or second to Jokic, whatever it might be. If in a time of duress, those habits aren't there to the point that the other guy, the guy who's basically the co-pillar of the franchise, has to go to you and say, you're not holding up your end of the bargain, then what you do during the good times does not matter to me. It just doesn't. And to circle back to earlier in the offseason, before training camp, before preseason, one of the reasons that we were all, certainly I was supportive of Joel Embiid playing in the Olympics, is not because I especially care about Joel Embiid's legacy. It's not because I care about him winning a gold medal, although I think those things are cool for him. The thing that I cared about the most, about him being with those guys for, you know, a month and a half, whatever it ends up being at the end of it, is so that he could be around LeBron James and Steph Curry and Kevin Durant and guys whose basketball is their life, right? basketball means something to them to a level where it is almost a mental illness, right? We've heard all the stories about LeBron puts 7 figures every year into off the court conditioning, rehab, rest, all that stuff. He's got all kinds of devices, trainers, people that he's working with, because being the best or being as close as he can possibly be to the best at 39 years old means more to him than basically anything else in his life. And being around guys whose habits are like that was, to me, the single most important reason to have that guy there at the Olympics playing for Team USA. And what this is telling me, what Tyrese Maxey's voice and his actions are telling me, is that that was wasted on him, that he didn't take a single meaningful lesson from being around those guys. And if that was the case, then yes, it was absolutely a mistake for that guy to go and prioritize that over, he could have just sat at home and done nothing and would have gained more from not putting miles on his body than apparently he has from playing alongside and working alongside those guys. So let's start there, right? The culture of the organization in every professional team, every professional sport, you can blame it on people in the front office, you can blame it on the coaching staff. Ultimately, it starts and ends with your best players and your quote unquote most important people. And if Joel Embiid, even though he's only played 3 games, if people look at him and see him as, whether it's because he's late, he's not working hard enough, he's not showing up in the way he needs to, and that doesn't even mean it's at practice, right? It could be late for flights. It could be late for film sessions. It could be late for anything. The second that you show that's what is acceptable, everybody else is going to follow suit. That's just how teams work at this level. So to say that I'm disappointed in what I'm hearing about Joel Embiid is a massive understatement. And I'm glad that Tyrese Maxey, fresh off of getting this new contract, fresh off of getting his first All-Star appearance last year, had the temerity to look him in the eye and said, this isn't good enough. And unless you are better, we are going nowhere, because that is the absolute honest to God truth.
Last night we had a question that was, who would speak up in a meeting like this, in a setting like this? And we talked about Lowry. We jokingly pointed out Marcus Morris because we had a super chat that came in from Marcus Morris. But we also said Tyrese Maxey. The difference was Tyrese Maxey is not playing, so sometimes that voice may not carry because he's not actually on the floor, and he does it in a different way where Kyle Lowry can maybe yell and scream about it, where Maxey does it a little bit more reserved. But based on this story and Maxey speaking out this way and calling out Embiid, who we all believe that he has the respect of Tyrese Maxey, and Tyrese Maxey has the respect of Embiid, where he can say that, we hope that it does, in fact, reach Joel Embiid. But at this stage of his career and at this stage of the season, early on for them to get to this start that they're in, it shouldn't even be. And when we were having the show last night, Derek, and I'll just say this because we can get back into things that have happened in the past where the groundwork has been laid by the organization since, 2014, of how this has been with Joel Embiid being able to do whatever he wants and how he does it. Someone had watched the show, is in the league, and reached out and said this to me, and I don't think they'll mind me sharing it because I know they won't. Joel has won an MVP, been the leading scorer in the NBA multiple times, won an Olympic gold medal, received a max contract, made more money than he ever dreamed he would. He's done. He doesn't possess the character to be a leader. This is someone who knows Joel Embiid, by the way, and he is not respected by his teammates or the league. This is what was shared to me last night. While we were doing the show, I just wanted to make sure it was cool to share it on the show, and I was giving the thumbs up. That's how a good portion of the league feels about Joel Embiid. So look, that's one person's opinion, but one person who I know talks to many people in the league, knows Joel, knows people around Joel, and know how this whole thing operates. They've been around for a long time. That's some strong stuff there. That's some really strong stuff. But by the way, fans have been, for the ones who have been on the opposite side of Joel, of he doesn't care, he only wants his stats, he only cares about the awards, things of that nature, the Hall of Fame, and we all push back on it for what Joel Embiid was. But to see him get out there after we all said what Kyle pointed out. So Kyle said he knows he can speak for himself. He spoke for me too, because we all sat here and said the Olympics will be good for Joel Embiid for the reason of being around Durant, Curry, LeBron James, who they are sick when it comes to their careers, their legacies, and how they're viewed. But they go out there and they put the work in there to get it done. And we're talking about guys who are now 35 plus, still playing at an elite level in terms of their age, who went out there and closed out the Olympics with him to secure that gold medal. And here we are having to now deal with this part of the season. While they are not injured, Joel Embiid is injured in the sense where it's slowing him down a bit, but there are other things that he could be doing to help his team win. And we're talking about a player's only meeting 13 games in.
Yeah. Look, I guess I'm just going to pivot real quickly. I want to give Maxey a lot of credit for stepping up and speaking in that environment. We were here 16 hours ago, and I said, Maxey's not typically a get-in-your-face, scream, curse kind of leader. And this doesn't necessarily mean he was cursing during that players-only meeting, but to get up and call out a former MVP, a guy who's been the face of the franchise for, a decade, a guy who you clearly respect and like and enjoy working with, to call him out and say, look, you need to be better. We cannot get to where we want to go if you're going to act like this. That takes a lot. That takes a lot of courage. That takes a lot of confidence. That takes a lot of, just being comfortable in yourself. And this is maybe the first time in the last decade you have a player who has the mentality, who has the confidence, and who has a stature within the organization to set an example like that. And that dovetails pretty much perfectly into the conversation we have been having here for the first 12 minutes of our show. Because for all the things that Joel Embiid is good at, and look, a lot of people want to boil everything down to winner or loser, things of that sort. I never think it's quite that simple. And especially I will push back on the soft and doesn't care aspect that I think he gets a lot of blame for. When you're playing through injuries, I give him credit for that. But his attention to detail has never been good. His willingness to push the envelope, to take those superstar privileges, has always been there through every coaching staff, through every front office. His practice habits have been better at times. It's never been great. And I think if you want to be win at the highest level, and just as specifically, if you want to transition into your late career, your attention to detail has to be immaculate. And can Joel Embiid...
We've seen what happens when it's not with other guys who've been stars in this town.
And there's a lot of comparisons, I think, with him and Allen Iverson in many different ways, from team success to that attention to detail aspect. I do give Embiid a little bit of credit for coming in, having lost weight. He's clearly not in game shape. But to sit here and say, look, we have an entirely new roster. We have a new star to integrate with. We have a coaching staff who's trying to figure all this out. You've really only got... Of the players playing significant minutes, you've got Tyrese Maxey, and that's about it, who you've played before. You have to be doing everything you can to get that process going quickly and to set a good example. And that's just never been at top of mind for Joel. He doesn't have those habits. He never really has. And what I love for him, and a lot of people are going to wonder, why did this come out? And there's two explanations. First of all, it's just there's a lot of people in that room. Those people in that room talk to a lot of people. Somebody is eventually going to talk. So it could be passively getting out, or it could be actively getting out, where somebody in that room is trying to get it out to send a message. And if the latter is the case, then it is somebody looking at it and saying, Joel Embiid needs a real kick. He needs something to change his habits quickly. And this is sort of like a last-ditch resort. And that's what I'm sort of worried about.
It's just insane that we are, set everything else aside. This guy's 30 years old. He's going to be 31 in March. The fact that his younger teammate, who, by the way, has basically been his little brother in the league, right? He came into the league, and Tyrese has been not shy at all about saying, Joel was the first guy to really show confidence in me, that he was the one who helped empower me, who told me, I believe in you. I want to see you shoot more. I want to see you do this. I want to see you do that. Brought him along in so many ways as an older mentor. For that younger mentee to then look you in the eye in year 5 and say, hey, buddy, you're not doing your job, is a really damning indictment of what Tyrese Maxey has seen. Because Tyrese Maxey has stood up for Joel over and over again. He's called out his talent. He's called out his work ethic. He's called out all kinds of things in a positive manner. For Tyrese to look him in the eye and say this, that should have been enough, right? For whatever reason this leaked out to the public, none of the reasons are good. The fact that that conversation had to be had at all, that Tyrese Maxey, who's hurt on the sideline, watching this season go completely off the rails as he's fighting to get back on the floor, that alone should be enough. Because Tyrese, you could ask basically anybody in that organization, he is the most respected guy in the organization, not just for what he produces on the court, but for what he does every day. Doc Rivers and Doc Rivers' staff had to ban him from the practice facility because he would try to come in on days where they're like, you've been going too hard. You've played a ton of minutes. You've played a ton in practice. We need you to take a day off. We need you to rest. That is tone that Tyrese Maxey tries to set every single day. He has done it from the first day he was in this organization. He does not take this opportunity for granted. He doesn't take his status for granted. Nobody has, to my knowledge, ever said a bad word about that kid. And on top of that, he is Mr. Smiles, right? Mr. Nice Guy, the person who's in there every day and trying to uplift everybody, who's trying to see the best in everybody. Joel, if he can't look at this, if he doesn't hear this message and immediately change what he is doing, how he is acting, how he is playing, how he is showing up and preparing for games, film sessions, practices, flights, all that, then there is no turning back from here, right? The message is important. The messenger to me is honestly more important because that is a guy who is not going this route unless he feels this is like the hard line in the sand. You need to get better.
Last night we talked about how they miss him badly on the floor. Shams also reported that based on his being checked out and reevaluated again last night, there was a chance that he can be back as early as Wednesday against the Memphis Grizzlies. If not, on Friday when the Sixers return home for the 3-game homestand and hosting the Brooklyn Nets. When we come back, what do these team meetings mean? Do they do anything? Do they have a positive effect? Even 13 games in, 4 games back of the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. The Sixers are 2-11. What do these team meetings actually mean? How much do they really help? We'll talk about that a little bit more along with Embiid, Maxey, and many more right here on the PHLY Sixers podcast.
All right, first up, we want to tell you about Empire Today because if flooring is something that has been on your to-do list, Empire Today is where you want to go to make that task a little bit more manageable. With Empire Today, you get shop-at-home convenience, the right product for your needs, quick and professional installation, and a price match guarantee. Empire Today is good, so they have some copycats, but those copycats can't beat Empire Today on quality, service, or speed, so they advertise low-quality products that Empire simply won't carry. Empire Today keeps shopping for floor simple with a curated product selection. Their philosophy is to help you find what you need, not to overwhelm you with thousands of choices and substitutes. And Empire Today has a virtual floor designer, which is a great way to see how new floors will look in any space. It's easy. Just snap a picture and instantly see how the new floors will look in your room. Flooring is all that Empire Today does. They live and breathe flooring, so you can be confident you're getting honest and upfront advice. They also service their own warranties, so with Empire Today, you won't have to track down a manufacturer's phone number. Schedule a free in-home estimate today. All listeners can receive a $350 off discount when you use the promo code PHLY. Restrictions apply. See empiretoday.com/PHLY for details. Also, sticking on the home remodeling front, CJAM Construction. CJAM Construction is a family-owned home remodeler specializing in decks, bathroom, and flooring. Their goal is to help their clients alleviate the challenges and frustrations that come with home remodeling. They have their core logic, which is flooring that is 100% waterproof, formaldehyde-free, and features an elegant natural wood look and feel. It is a durable flooring with no less than 20 millimeters wear layer and an overall plank thickness of 5 millimeters. Be sure to mention PHLY when you call in at 1-856-329-2933 about your next home project. See their full selection of luxury vinyl plank flooring and learn more about the products and warranties on their website at cjamconstruction.com/flooring.
Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers Show presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app and use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. This has not been all that ordinary with the 76ers right now.
Well, I guess that depends on your
A
definition of ordinary.
I have had why can't they just be normal as my location on Twitter for about 3 years now, and I've never felt compelled to change it.
Wow, look at that one. Well, listen, man, and your time covering the team, Derek, how often, first of all, what does it spell when a team meeting is leaked out there that it has happened? And then what are the after effects of those team meetings when they do take place?
Trying to think, when was the last time they really had a team meeting? Was there one during Ben's, like, I'm sure they had a team meeting during the Ben holdout.
I believe so, right.
It hasn't been all that frequent during the Sixers era, which is surprising because there's been so many reasons to have a team meeting. No, I mean, it means that they are desperate. It means that they don't really see a way out of this without trying to force someone's hand and change behavior through peer pressure and going public with it. Like I said, there is always a chance that these things, when you have, you've got 15 players on the roster, you've got the coaching staff. I think some of the front office was in there, even though originally they were not supposed to be. I'd have to double check that. But you could have a solid 30 people in there. Those 30 people talk to a bunch of people. There's a lot of people that know about it. So it's not necessarily always just a coordinated leak, but you could certainly understand why it would be coordinated, because peer pressure is a way to change behavior, especially with somebody who, is as aware and as cognizant of how he is viewed as Joel is.
The thing with this type of deal is that now it goes from when the Marcus Hayes thing happened, right? That was the thing where you could say, we can rally in the locker room around, like, screw that guy, he's an outsider. You have no one to blame in this situation for this getting out, except for somebody or multiple somebodies who were in that room, right? Because there is no mechanism for a closed door inner circle meeting to get to the public outside of somebody in that room saying, this is so bad that other people need to know about it. That if it's just, it could just be gossiping. It could be, as Derek's alluded to, it could be that somebody feels Joel needs this out in the public to get an even bigger kick in the ass than he got in that meeting last night. That is ultimately what's going to push him toward playing better, working harder, being on time, whatever it might be. That is really deeply concerning. I would add this too, because this has been, we're at 20 plus minutes now of basically saying, screw Joel, Tyrese is the best type of deal. The other thing that is really going to be interesting to see out of this is maybe this will be the time someone is honest and transparent and forthcoming about whatever the hell is going on with Joel Embiid's health and Joel Embiid's knee. Because
what do you mean? This is all part of the plan.
Everything's on the table now, right? Everyone's piling on Joel. And some of the reason that messaging is never transparent with Joel Embiid comes down to the player and what the player wants out there. Well, if all the blame is being put at Joel Embiid's feet, it would not be surprising if now is the time that we learn maybe that knee is not in as good a shape as it needs to be. And I can't tell you one way or another. I have asked 15 different ways to 15 different people, what is the deal here, right? And we keep going back over the fact that Joel Embiid publicly said, I don't trust the knee. I don't have the confidence in it to do the things and be the player that I need to be. He has said he thinks it will come, that it will take time, but he will get there. But is that real or is that false bravado? We don't know. So we're all just kind of sitting here waiting to see, is the former MVP, the guy who's been an all NBA player, the guy who's capable of scoring 70 points in a game, of going on these long, dominant stretches, is that guy still there? We don't know, and we simply won't know until more time goes by and we see it on the floor. So there are two sides of it, right? On the one hand, if this does come down to health, you feel bad for Joel, right? Because if his body just can't respond, if he just simply can't get to a place that he needs to be in order to be the impact guy that needed to be on this team, that's not, his body is failing him. He's put it on the line, whatever. If it comes more down to he showed up and this plan is like, oh, we're gonna rest him, we're not gonna play him back-to-backs, and he's not in good enough shape, he's not sharp enough, he's not on time, he's not this, he's not that, then that's just a giant indictment on him. So we're going to find out over time what's real and what's not. It's a bad thing either way that this is playing out in public rather than behind closed doors.
Well, the health thing is that part is tough, because when you say is it the knee, is it health? Well, is it the mental side of the knee being a problem, or is it something still loose and uncomfortable in the knee where he can't do the things that he's supposed to be able to do with that knee? Only he knows that. And of course, what he relays to the medical staff and the coaching staff of how he truly feels when it comes to that knee and what that means. So I don't know how they're going to share that message. And the messaging has already been rough as it is. I don't know how they're going to put that one out, because is it saying he's mentally having a problem of doing it? He said it himself. Or is it something's up with the knee and he shouldn't be playing at all? And they thought that he might have been the third option to Maxey's one option, where Embiid is still on the floor, so he's a decoy a lot of times, and Paul George is technically your number two because of what Embiid can and cannot do. And then again, get to the postseason and have him being as close to himself in a postseason setting and trying to make that run. So whatever messaging, I cannot wait to find out if that is something that we start to get a little more transparency about it, if it's transparent.
I suspect we're not going to, though. I mean,
so
we're to the point of where he's 30 years old and he hasn't changed habits to the point that Maxey's calling him out. I can't imagine all of a sudden it's like, hey, let's be as open and honest as we can about Joel's knee. And
right. And it's one thing for players to want to leak what happened in a closed door meeting or leak his practice habits in an effort to try to change his behavior. I think players would be or anyone around the team would be much less likely to leak any damaging information about his knee, because I think that's something people empathize with a lot more, including myself. Like, I give him a lot of credit for, trying to play through these various injuries. It's one thing to be unreliable. It's another thing to be soft. I don't think a player continually putting his health at risk to play through injuries is soft. I think he's unfortunate, but unless Brian Colangelo walks through that door with some burner accounts, teams don't generally like to leak information like that about an injury. So yeah, it sucks, but it's also like, if his knee is either something that he doesn't trust or something that is hurting him more than is being let on, it just drives home the point even more. The details matter. The small habits matter. The margins matter a lot more than when you're at perfect health and able to dominate the league. He's got to transition into being really, really detail focused, and quite frankly, just being a player off the court that he hasn't been up to this point in his career.
I want to add too, but both of you said it, and coming back from the break about Embiid, because when he revealed after the season and the free agency started happening, we finally get to training camp, and he pointed out how he lost to 25, 30 pounds. You mentioned, is he not in shape? He looks good, but basketball shape, he's not being in shape. So then there was the calling Daryl Morey immediately after the season, and saying, I have to do whatever it takes for us to win. And now we're here still talking about the message that you've hammered home a lot over these last couple of weeks. Same for you, Derek, that all right, it was said again, but there's nothing happening about it when it comes to wanting to be different, now having to have Tyrese Maxey speak up the way that he did, that all of that stuff, was it just fluff? Or did you say it because it just sounded good? And what's the problem with actually going out there and executing these very simple things that we're talking about, of being a totally different type of guy in order to win and go out there and win a championship? He said those things. We didn't say that. He said that. He lost the pounds. All right, cool. What about the game shape? And number two, doing everything that's possible within you to make sure that you are good enough to play for this basketball team and be a better teammate overall for this group. And this stuff happens. And then, by the way, when Embiid, based on the Shams report, says that, I don't even know what we're running out there on the floor.
I mean,
what does that mean? So
we'll get to that, because
we need to get into that too. So, yes.
I'm just stunned that we're here, because Doc Rivers took victory laps about fixing the culture of the team. He took victory laps all the time. I'm stunned that wasn't true.
He's fixed the culture. Well, there's some culture change there in Milwaukee. We don't know what that one is. We'll get to it more. What does it mean that he doesn't know.
I love blaming Doc Rivers as much as anybody, but this is not the time for me to take pot shots.
I just needed the joke for my own mental, you know?
What does Joel mean by he doesn't know what they're running on the floor? We watched it last night. Maybe he's right.
Yeah, I don't know what they're running on the floor either.
Let's talk about it on the other side right here on this Tuesday. A session we're having right here. Let's all get through it together. The PHLY Sixers podcast. Deep sighs.
If ever there was a time to choose chill, it is this time right now in the city of Philadelphia or wherever you are watching from around the country and around the world. Coors Light, thankfully, is always there for us, always there for you. And with Coors Light, you know you can choose chill every single time because you know that beer is ice cold when the mountains turn blue on the bottles and cans. You saw a couple of those on the set last night. Derek and I decided this has been such a mess. I can't wait until the show's over. I don't want to have to, do the hour plus show, and then go to the refrigerator and have a nice, refreshing, cold layered, cold filtered, cold packaged Coors Light. Oh, no. Listen, if we get to the point that Devon Gibbons is drinking Coors Light in the middle of the show, the man with no vices who I've only ever seen drink water and Coca-Cola, that if we are really in a dark place. But listen, I'm never in a dark place when I have a nice ice cold Coors Light in my hand. Whew.
Man.
So even as the whole NBA world looks upon Philadelphia and laughs, you can always choose to rise above it all and choose chill. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/PHLY basketball. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
All right, and after you choose chill and take a deep breath and sigh like Kyle did, you can get your phone out, go to your Bet365 app, and know that on a Tuesday night, you're not betting for your 2-11 Sixers team that's probably bound to lose in that particular situation, where you can go to a good game tonight where Boston is hosting Cleveland in the battle of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. You can do that by betting at Bet365, downloading the app, going in there, downloading the app at Bet365, and getting right to it using code PHLY365 when you sign up. And when you do, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5 on any basketball game you would like tonight, maybe hockey. Use the code PHLY365. When you sign up, deposit $10 and place a bet for $5 to get $150 in those bonus bets. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, maybe of tonight's game, totals, player props, futures, and more. Maybe rookie of the year. You might feel good at least about one thing about your basketball team, and that is the rookie guard and his chances of winning the rookie of the year at the end of the season. If so, if you're feeling good, once again, here's how you do it. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up to get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 plus and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers show here on this Tuesday, presented by Bet365. If I have to crack open a Coors Light, it's really bad. And plus, you're going to have to
And that is not an indictment on the Coors Light product. That is about Devon's life choices.
Chill, and then Kyle's going to have to drive me home. That's just the bottom line.
I'll tell you what.
Lightweight Gibbons, they're calling him.
To have talked and covered this team for as long as you have and not have vices, I give you a lot of credit, man. You are
candy, man.
That's true. That
candy.
Is a vice.
That's and eating food late at night. That is mine. Kyle, all right, now that we're here, and the Embiid part of the piece from Shams states that from that meeting, he also, while he took the criticism from Maxey, and he took that, he was okay with that, he also pointed out that not just him, that the team needs to be coached harder by the head coach, Nick Nurse, but he also doesn't know what's going on with the offense. What are your thoughts on that?
I think if you take it all together, which you should, right? We shouldn't be trying to extract one thing and one thing and one thing. I think what I see is that nobody has answers, right? Maxey's pointing at Joel, and rightfully so, pointing at Joel and saying, you need to do this. The players said to the coaching staff, you need to coach us harder. The coaches then went to them, you need to practice harder. And then Joel says, what are we doing on the court? I'm confused about what we're running. That means there is no chemistry. There is no synergy. There is no plan, at least an actionable one, right? Nothing is working in cohesion. It's a bunch of individual parts acting as individual parts and saying to one another, I don't see what you're doing to help me, right? It's a blame game. And there were some people on Twitter and elsewhere who were saying, well, this isn't a blame game. They're putting it on Joel. No, if you actually read the whole thing, nobody has an answer. There is no one definitive thing. Hey, if we just played transition defense, hey, if we just make some threes, everything's going to be okay. That wasn't the message. It was a bunch of guys from a bunch of different perspectives saying, what you're doing isn't good enough. I don't see a whole lot of, at least it has not leaked out yet. I'm obviously been talking to people, calling, texting, whatever, to see more specifics, more drilling down on what that meeting was like. But we don't hear a whole lot of like, this person was, yep, I put my hand up. I'm the problem right now, or I'm a problem. We heard Joel accepted what was being directed at him. But when they get to the public, and like, so that's the thing that's interesting to me, right? One of the other things I was disappointed to see and hear from Joel last night was after this meeting, where ostensibly they should have come out of that and been like, it's lock-in time, right? It's time to get serious. He's still out there joking around. He's trolling the media. So, what meeting? I don't know what you're talking about, type of thing. There's a time and a place to try to have a laugh, right? And to try to make light of things. 2-11 and being called out for being late and your work ethic and your habits being nonsense by one of your other best players, that's not the time to come out and try to make light of everything. In fact, I would look at that if I were someone who thought that that meeting needed to be leaked, and I saw Joel coming out after that meeting and after that game and trying to brush things off, talking about Jimmy Butler's the best basketball player in the league, that's when it'd be like, all right, kicking the ass time for Joel. This is going public. Because I love Joel's personality, right? I love that we get such an open and honest window into where his head is at and where his heart is at any given time. But he is not helping himself, and he is not helping this team with how he is approaching this publicly right now. And unfortunately, I think people overstate like the influence that fans and media and other people outside have on the season. But you can't overstate it right now, right? These guys are being consumed by everything that's being said and talked about with this team right now, to the point that it is helping to define who they are and what they are. Knowing that, and if you're going to give credit to Joel for having control of the narrative and, oh man, he's a great social media, like goes on Twitter, goes on Instagram, does these funny things, and is perceptive enough to know how to poke at people and prod at people, you have to be perceptive enough to know when to shut the hell up and be serious for 10 seconds, right? And that, to me, reflects on a lot of different things that we're probably not seeing behind the scenes as well.
Can we pivot a little bit to some of the other stuff outside of Joe? Because I do feel like the garbage offense is true and probably need to be stated. And it's not just Joel Embiid this time. Like a lot of times, I think when the offense gets stagnant, we lay that on Joel's feet. The offense has looked bad all year. We were complaining very early on when it was just Maxey that everything is one run action, see if it works, and if not, you're kicking it out to Caleb Martin with 7 seconds left on the shot clock. There's been very little imagination, very little movement. So I think what that was brought up there about not knowing the offense and not being sure what's going on, I think that's fair. And for as much as Joel Embiid is, I think, rightfully so, the stuff about Joel is the headliner, not just because it's going to get the most attention, because it's the one that has to change if anything else is going to matter. But their offense sucks. And it's not all just that Joel Embiid was late to team meetings or every team meeting in this case. He's not the one missing the shots. He's not the one calling the plays. He's not the one implementing the schemes,
or even on the floor for most of the
games and most of the time. Nick Nurse has to be better. And I don't know if necessarily like airing it's one thing to air Embiid's habits, hoping that will change the habits. I'm not sure airing frustration with the offense is going to have the same kickstarting effect to it. But I absolutely agree that this is like point B in what was 4 or 5 points in that article.
They are the single worst offense in the entire NBA.
Yeah.
And you can say, hey, they've been down multiple stars. They've had to mash it together with role players. They have a worse offense than the Washington Wizards, the Portland Trailblazers, the Utah Jazz, and by the way, the New Orleans Pelicans, who half the team is hurt. Zion's been out. They're like DeJounte Murray's been hurt since like the first or second game of the season. They are down 1 million guys. And they have a better offense than the Sixers by like 4 points per 100 possessions. That's not an insignificant gap, right?
Yeah.
So you can't sit here and tell me that they should be as bad as they are on offense, even with all the context in the world, right? With Joel Embiid on the floor. And yes, he is not himself. He's not close to himself. This is a real stat. Across all lineups in the NBA that have played enough possessions to be measured this year, they are in the 0th percentile on offense. They are scoring less than 88 points per 100 possessions. That is a number that if you had it in the late 90s or early 2000s, where it was like pulling teeth to try to score, they would be humiliated by those numbers. And that's with Joel Embiid on the floor. That is absolutely not all him. Their top line offensive numbers are also a disaster. It's a poor reflection on the coach. It's a poor reflection on who he plays. And again, we said it on the postgame show last night. They were within 5 or 6 points in the third quarter. We'll call it like a seesaw type game at that point, right? You are 2-10. You have 2 of your stars available, albeit one is sick and on a minute restriction. And you put a lineup on the floor of Andre Drummond, Kelly Oubre, Eric Gordon, Jared McCain, and Jeff Doughton. That is a disgrace. I don't care what you think of Jared McCain, and we have been singing his praises, talking about how good he is. That lineup has no chance, none. They have not a prayer in the world to try to score or defend at an acceptable level, especially against a team with a coach who looks at his best players and says, you know what I'm going to do? What my genius big brain play is here? I'm going to keep a star on the floor at all times, right? It's not that hard. If Doc Rivers put that same lineup on the floor that Nick Nurse did last night, they would be trying to run him out of town today. It would not be wait 2 weeks. It would be, it's that bozo Doc Rivers doing the same thing he's done his whole career, playing all bench lineups of guys who simply cannot win minutes. The fact that you now have Paul George off a minute restriction and are not staggering him to play every single second that Joel Embiid couldn't play last night is just ridiculous. And I cannot believe it was allowed to happen.
This offense has been no fun. No fun to watch. None at all. And when you bring up Paul George, how many times have we sat there, though, even with him out there, dribbling the ball? Where are you going? What are you doing? Now you're the one that's not moving the basketball. Just dribbling, taking time off the clock. And that even goes back to not knowing what they're doing all the way back to the Phoenix game where they had an opportunity to win that one. He didn't know the score. He didn't decide to get the ball to the man with the hot hand. And we can point out something from every single game of how bad, how poorly this offense has been run and how terrible it has looked. Just
the scheme is bad,
it's
right?
Bad,
there's
man.
not. So Nick Nurse on a base level, right, wants to run pretty basic stuff. He does not want to overcomplicate things. It's a move the ball, read and react, play fast. If you're not shooting it, if you're not passing it, dribble toward the basket. then move it, then make a decision. There is no real room in his world and his offensive philosophy where the ball sticks and you don't move. And we're seeing a ton of that right now. But it is so hard to even get to things like scheme when I have to watch them play and look at some guys that actually have contributed to good offense. And you're not even playing Yabusele until the third quarter.
Which is insane.
We're like, who to play is the most basic decision you can make. Kyle Lowry, who hasn't done anything good in like 2.5 weeks, is getting plenty of first half playing time. And Yabusele, who's been one of the only guys that you put on the floor and you would say good things are happening offensively. It doesn't have to be him, right? He's moving the ball. He's shooting fairly well. He's a decent passer. He's running in transition. He's doing the little things that add up to winning. For you to look at it and say, he's surplus to requirements, but find room for Lowry, who can't hit the broadside of a barn and can't move, or Eric Gordon also hasn't shot, also can't move, also can't defend. Like, I can't even in my head get to the point where I even necessarily care about the scheme when the basic stuff of like, this guy's playing well, maybe you should play him, is not being done. Like, that's just a complete failure.
Kyle Lowry over the last 6 games, 3.5 points on 20.7% shooting in 26 minutes. Legitimately one of the most damaging players in the league over that stretch.
And what was that number you had last night after he got off to that hot start from 3-point range?
Yeah, I think it was 15 for 23 from 3 to start the season and like 2 for 23 since.
Yeah, not good.
But he keeps putting him out there. And look, I said on the show last night, and last night was maybe not the most egregious example because he only played him 19 minutes, but to have been playing him 30 minutes per in 5 games up to that point was criminal. And unlike Kyle, I can be mad at both the scheme and the lineups because they're coming from the same freaking person.
And Ramid brings up Jeff Doughton. Kyle, last night when we were sitting there, all three of us watching the game, and he had an opportunity a few times where the offense was running. Somehow Jared McCain found himself wide open, and you screaming, "Get him the ball! Why are you not passing him the ball?" Since his Charlotte game, there's a screenshot for that.
It went around the Discord today.
Okay. Yeah. So even after his really good game against Charlotte, where they won that one, their second overtime win of the season, he has done nothing else good for the 76ers.
I'm sending this tweet to Bray.
Okay. All right. I didn't see it.
Pull up.
It's not even like there are some where like a guy can be open. You're like, well, but I'm not sure if he has a vision line to see it. Like, no, it would be like me looking at Kyle and being like, oh, I don't see Devon right there.
Yeah.
It was really egregious.
It was really that bad? All right.
But look, when Jeff Doughton can cook, you got to let him cook.
And he had another moment later in the game that was actually probably later in the same stretch that was Jared McCain on the wing and Haywood Highsmith, I believe, was helping over. It might have been a matchup zone. And he's just like, bro, give me the damn ball. Yeah, Bree, whenever we can pull up the Jeff Doughton.
Brian Pumper says, Doughton is ass.
Wow. In his head, he's like, it's Jeff Doughton time.
A wide open quarter 3 for one of the best shooters in the game right now. And he's like, nah, man, I got this.
Oh, my God. Listen,
Wow.
I have voiced my Reggie Jackson complaints on this show, but also, how do you look at Reggie playing well in the Cleveland game? Jeff Doughton stinking it up multiple games in a row.
Watch out, Jared. I got this.
And
Stand in the corner.
You know what?
I got this.
I don't even think Reggie should be on the roster in an ideal world, right? He's here because he's Paul George's friend. That's the main reason Reggie Jackson is on this team. But when a guy plays well, how about you play him after that?
It's just wild that he goes to these small lineups all the time. And in theory, I don't hate small lineups because it means you should get a surplus of shooting and ball handling on the floor. And you go to these small lineups and you have no shooting or ball handling or shot creation. What are we doing? These lineups are driving me nuts.
He was really wide open in that picture,
no,
man.
he was really wide. He was really
right.
Like I said, there's no argument to be made that he didn't see him. He's looking right at the freaking guy.
Unless he did one of those look away, I'm looking this way. I'm not even making an excuse for that one. That was really bad. All right.
That's the second time in a week that he did that exact
really
thing where a team left Jared open.
This isn't Summer League, buddy. You pass the guy the ball. This is not Summer League. All right, we got a lot of super chats. Let's get a few of these in here. Oh, man. Let's start with Kevin Simon, though, he says, seems like needed open dialogue. They needed open dialogue. Difficult conversation needed to be had last night in that locker room.
And
of course they did.
I hope that this is the kick in the butt that Joel needed, right? That we all hope that this is not like the season's just over and Joel pouts. I think everyone, ideally, including Tyrese Maxey and the guys in that locker room, they want this to be a turning point.
Yeah.
I just wonder if maybe you had somebody in the organization with the clout and the confidence to do this. You know, if Maxey had come up with him 8 years ago, if you could have changed some of these habits before, but can't change that.
Or maybe if they had simply kept Jimmy Butler around and, you know,
the best
have an
player
ass
in the NBA.
kicker in that room.
Best player in the NBA, man.
Yeah, man. We really, I was thinking about it last night. This really, even though the roster is not as clunky, we're just running back the 2019-20 season where the fan base hates Joel. He's talking about how much he loves Jimmy Butler. It's like you just need Al Horford stealing money from the organization, and then
the vibes on that team were way better.
Well, because they didn't suck right away.
Well, and the vibes on that team weren't good. Joel Embiid was mopey
They
all
got off to a good start that year, surprisingly.
Yeah.
So we at least got a couple of weeks where it's like, oh boy, maybe it'll figure some things out. We're not even getting that.
November 19th, y'all. November 19th. Elaine Bruno with the super chat here. Why is Embiid such a bad leader? Is it because he's an outsider and built himself into opposition to others? Nah, you know, he never says.
I'm not rolling
on
with that one.
Not at all. No.
Yeah.
We can, I mean, look, I can't tell you why Joel has not. If I was going to speculate, it's because of what Derek is saying, right? That he was so talented and that there was nobody to really check him in those early years. Once you form habits, whether they're good habits or they're bad habits, you guys know they're hard to break.
And especially once you get to the top of your profession, win an MVP, win back-to-back scoring titles, like they become even tougher. They become more ingrained. It's a lot like, no, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to bring that guy up.
Well, you brought up, we brought up the Iverson thing a little bit, right? Like everyone loved Iverson for, he left it on the floor when he was out there, and that was worth adoration. And the practice rant was, there's a lot more to that than, and that's a whole different conversation. The practice rant is legendary and yada, yada, yada. But when Allen Iverson needed those things, right? Derek's talking about attention to detail. When Iverson needed the attention to detail, the practice work, the things that you gain from being engaged in a practice, being engaged in a film session, the important work in the weight room, the diet, all that other stuff. When his decline came and he needed those things to help keep him closer to that level, he didn't have them. And there was no way to pull out of that death spiral. And that's what happens to a lot of these guys. When you see athletes go off a cliff very quickly, it's because when their body started to trend downward, when they lost that first step, that the verticality, whatever it might be for an individual guy, and they had to make up for that with the subtleties of the game, with the thinking of the game, and they couldn't do that. That's the scary part, right? If you lose that and you don't have the good everyday habits at everything else to try to make up for it, you can be in trouble much quicker than people expect.
Yeah.
Yep.
I really think Iverson is I think some people will gravitate towards Iverson a little more because first of all, he was more expressive on the floor. And I think people, like I said, gravitate towards that. But also he was able to play through more of his injuries, whereas Joel Embiid has been out of the lineup more often. That doesn't mean that the injuries aren't both there. And I think it's probably significantly tougher to play through injuries when you're 7 foot 280 compared to 5'11", 160 or whatever. I think it just takes way more of a toll, especially when they are knee-related injuries. I think I have said before, I think Joel should get more credit for playing through injuries and through pain, but I think their careers are very similar.
Brian Pumpert, super chat, shows up late to everything but expects to not be confused on the court. The audacity of this man. Didn't know we could stack crap that high. Well, all right. Well, they're going to keep stacking them, these losses. 11 right now through 13 games. They keep stacking the crap. And it's going to be rough tomorrow against Memphis also. against the Memphis Grizzlies. So we'll see about that. Brian Pumper. Writer here says that Pat Bev said he had to challenge Embiid last season, and now Maxey is calling him out. The leader of the team shouldn't need to be pushed all the time. That's Ryder there in the super chat. Appreciate it, Ryder.
I would say I care a lot more about Tyrese Maxey and what he has to say than Pat Bev, who, to be charitable, I'll say he's an unreliable narrator and leave it at that.
But when it's multiple people sort of saying the same message.
Yeah, when they are saying the same thing, it's at a certain point. Can't ignore it.
Josh Baker also jumping in the super chat. Joel is a smart dude and a film junkie. If he doesn't understand the offense, I got to assume he doesn't see an apparent strategy, not confused by the X's and O's of Nick Nurse's offense.
Yeah, no, I think that's 100% how I took it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's also really damning that it's not like Nick Nurse's, this is year one, right? And it's a completely new offense. I know that there are different elements and a big piece to integrate in Paul George, but the whole sales pitch of Paul George is plug and play guy, right? Doesn't need to be on ball, can use him as an off ball weapon. That's the perfect third guy next to these other two. The fact that Joel is saying this, we all agree, Josh, that is a bad place to be. Bad place to be. Does not reflect well on Nick or the entire staff.
At all. What up, Al? The whole team is shooting 42% from the field, 31 from three, and scoring 103 points a game.
Yeah, their offense sucks.
There you go. They're tied with the Wizards horrible. For the worst record in the NBA.
You could go through every category on offense, every major category, and they are at or close to the bottom.
Yeah, they're like 26 or worse in everything.
So worst in offense overall. They have the third worst assist to turnover ratio. They are 25th in offensive rebounding. They are, they're not bottom. They're only 16th in turnover percentage. So they got that going for them. That's kind of nice.
It just gives us 24 seconds to look at the bad offense that they
run. Are 29th in three-point percentage. I mean, there's just nothing they can hang their hat on, right? You said it last night on the show, Devon. They are a bad basketball team. Once you go through all these things and it's just bad. At that point, it's not fitting. It's not this. You are just bad. You're a bad team. This is what bad teams do. You find different ways to lose, and they do every night.
You had a 19-point lead in the first half. Bad basketball teams find out to drop that and lose at the end and have the third quarter that, Derek, you always point out how poorly they play in the third quarter. That's what bad teams do.
They're playing like trash in the fourth quarter, too, now. They're diversifying.
Well, that's because they lose the lead in the third and they just double up. Now they got to try to do something, and then they shoot 4 for 16 in the fourth quarter because they're trying to come back. So at least the reserves are getting a lot of good garbage time. Get them out there. What up, Rick? What's going on? All right, Brian Pumper back again. Mac and Max is the only thing we look forward to. We got a podcaster and
a 7-footer who fades reporters. Thank you, Pump.
Little Paul George podcaster and a 7-footer who fades reporters.
Podcast paid stock.
What is he going to say on his? Down. Yeah, I mean, what can you say?
I will say this about Paul George.
Jeez.
He is finding out what it means to play for a team in this type of
Remember
market,
when he was asking what it was like on his podcast, and he was like, "Yeah, you're gonna find out."
Indiana and OKC and the stepbrother team in LA ain't Philadelphia, and you are finding that out very quickly.
Oh man!
Good news for him is that there's so much other controversy around his team. Like he's third or fourth on the totem pole, and he's been bad.
He had a lot of open threes looks last night, and
he can't shoot right
now. He could not.
That is one thing.
And he made 5 against New York, right?
Yeah, no, he'll have one game where he makes and then 3 games where he misses. And that's one thing where I am concerned. And I feel like when they were talking about him, I was pretty hard on the first place you'll notice that he's 34 and had a lot of injuries is on his dribble drive game. And that's been even worse than I think even I was expecting. So when you can't create and ramp up to being a first or a 1A or a 2 option, and your shots aren't going in, it's going to look real bad. I do have full confidence in the shot eventually turning around. He has had months in the past where he's shooting in the 20s. It's just they need him to be able to elevate his game and be a 1A or a 2, and he just hasn't been able to.
Hey, we appreciate everybody watching on TV, watching us on Roku TV, Samsung TV, and now Xfinity as well. I was over at my mom's, and she watches all the time, as you guys know, but she has her cable. She has Xfinity. Got the voice remote, set it right in there, PHLY Sports.
Beautiful.
Pop right there. Anthony Gargano is on the screen. By the way. Yes. So if you are watching on TV, head on over to allphly.com for more of the show, because we still have a lot for you here. And if you're checking out and you're worried about our schedule for tomorrow, we do want to tell you that tomorrow we'll be here for the Memphis pregame show, Memphis and the Sixers, Memphis Grizzlies, Philadelphia 76ers pregame show. And that will be tomorrow right here on the PHLY Sixers pregame on the podcast for you. So we have you covered there. Real Time with Prince Blue. Who is going to be the Sixers Matt Geyer, this version of the Sixers?
You mean the guy who
trade?
uses a no-trade clause to keep the star in Philadelphia long enough for them to go on a storybook finals run?
I honestly don't know what else he's referring to.
That's the only thing I can think of. That's the only thing.
Matt Geiger
well, by the way, there's a lot of people who are, and we said this last night, who are like, trade Joel, do this. They literally cannot trade Joel.
Yeah.
They can't trade him this year. It is illegal.
Is not trade eligible until the season's over, correct? And by the way, if he keeps playing like this with that extension, you're not going to be able to trade him anyway.
Value.
So
just a reminder to everyone that it cannot happen. So we're all strapped in for this misery together, everybody.
Let's keep it going. Elaine Bruno. It's sad that Joe is Provo all the haters too. All right. Whew. This has been, wow, man. Last night, today, the venting session, it's come to an end. But we have to say thank you to all of you.
For now.
For now. We have to say thank you to all of you. We have to say thank you to our presenting sponsor, Bet365. Download the Bet365 app and use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Go make some money tonight, folks. That's how you do it.
Start betting on Sixers unders.
That's fair, too.
You'd be a rich man.
That's
right
fair,
now.
too. Yeah. Well, at least we got the under right last night for Embiid points, 24.5. We went under. He had 11 and did not get to the free throw line.
I think that in itself is telling of where he's at physically.
You watched some of the second half before the show, and you were looking at the outside shot again. Did you look at the one that we all were like, whoa, what was that?
The first one that he took of the half was like, brother, what is going on with this shot?
Yeah.
I don't. The second one was not as bad as I remembered it in real time, but yeah, it's been.
I still think that first one, I think something just got him off his rhythm and he put a shot up he shouldn't have, but I haven't gone back and rewatched it. So
yeah,
maybe it was the knee and he tried to lift and he couldn't lift, and sometimes the knee buckles and you're just in a bad spot. Haidar checks in with the late super chat. Sometimes living in Europe is nice. I can't stay up for all the games.
I like how he dropped a super chat just to brag. Hey, buddy, I didn't even watch that one last night.
Well, and I have socialized medicine.
We appreciate you still jumping in on the show, though, Haidar.
Shout out to Haidar in Iceland. I believe,
appreciate that. All right, let's get to the world famous roll call. Man, it's been rough. Let's get to the roll call because you guys have been showing up, though. 800 plus last night live, 700 plus today. We appreciate everybody jumping in the afternoon. We know you're at work. We know your boss is walking by your desk, and you're like, "Yeah, screw that. My Sixers are 2-11, and I need to commiserate with the family." Let's shout out the family right now. Kyle.
Shout out the family. First, I want to start with Jeannie H because she said in the chat, "This will right the ship."
Jeannie.
I'm trusting and believing.
What up, Jeannie?
Jeannie. That is a level of optimism the rest of us can only aspire to. So shout out to you for being amongst the people that are trying to keep the hope alive.
Thank you, Jeannie.
Thank you, Jeannie. Thank you also to Val, to
Val.
Money Mar, to Phi Chi, to Flex Hoops.
Flex those hoops.
To Martian Lynch, who says, we don't deserve a roll call. Buddy, you guys didn't do anything wrong. The Sixers did. To Terrion, to Brian Pumper,
what up,
Jeffrey
Pump?
Stewart, Our guy, Roy Burton.
What up, Roy?
In the house.
See you soon.
See you soon, Roy. Mary Overfield. Shout out to Mary.
Mary.
Remo K. Michael B checking in
What
from
up,
overseas.
Mike? We'll be there soon, Mike.
Jess checking in.
Hey, Jess.
My girl, Winona.
Nona.
Mellow 3-point.
Take
Papas
that shot. What
from
up,
the
Papas?
UK hanging out and commiserating with the rest of us. Prawn G123, who had a lot to say today about Joel and Jokic and a whole lot of other things. What up to Prawn? Ken Wilson. Maury's yams are back.
Although we misspelled Maury.
Well,
Wow, it's probably
at this time it's okay, man.
M-O-E-R-Y.
At this
You gotta
time,
fix
it's
that,
all
man.
right.
You've changed your
That's
name.
one of those where it's like you haven't earned the correct spelling right now.
Yeah.
But to be fair, he's changed his name 6 times. Let's go back and clean that up.
I
Come on,
guess.
man.
Shout out
this
to-
whole show has been about attention to detail.
Shout out to our super
Do better.
chatters today. Haidar, Elaine, Real Time, Pump, our guy Al, the 2-minute warning,
What up,
Josh
Al?
Baker, Say a Rider,
What up,
Kevin
Ryder?
Simon. That's all our super chatters today.
What up, all of y'all?
Thank
in the
you
super
to
chat.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you to Cannoli, to Colby Coles,
Holy cannoli.
to
Great
either
show, Cole.
Bino or Bino 777.
Bino.
I'm running out of
Bino.
room here.
What's
Finney
happening,
Chase,
Bino? What
Ant
is going
Cole,
on?
Dave Dewar, Prophet One,
Prophet. Aren't you supposed to tell us this was supposed to happen, Prophet?
Ken Wilson, Vegas Dev, Brian Knight, Sir Schmooey, AC Phila,
AC. What's going on?
Larry Love. Much love
2-11.
to every single person.
It's wild, right?
All right, you know who we got to end on?
Every
At least
now
they
and then
haven't
just say
Because-
lost 9 in a row like Washington, huh?
The lights are off right now, Devon. Darkness
Turn the lights down. Turn them off.
hanging
The
in.
Sixers are saying the lights are too bright. The lights are too bright. Let's get out of here.
Thank you,
Oh,
everyone. Hit the subscribe button if you have not
up,
already.
darkness?
Hit the bell icon so you get notifications for each and every time we come online
Get a
to
light
yell
bell,
about
Sixers.
this
A
miserable
light bell,
basketball
Sixers.
team. And as always,
Oh.
hit that thumbs up to help us in the algorithm,
light.
but
Let me hit the thumbs
especially
up.
to thank super producer Bree hanging out with us, listen to us shout, and dealing with our nonsense every day. Say thank you to Bree. As Devon said, we will be back tomorrow night, Wednesday night, against Memphis, pregame, postgame, post-fracas, post players only meeting. Whatever happens, we will be here. We'll see you then. Love to you all.
And that is an 8 o'clock start.
It is.
So we have a 7:30 pregame. All right. Late night. Hoops.
Goodbye.
See ya.
We all silly like the mayor.